The air was dry, cracked open by the sun, and smelled of dust, pine, and blood. John Colter stood in silence, surrounded by 30 Blackfeet warriors. His chest heaved, but he didn't speak. He couldn't. The weight of the moment had pressed the breath from his lungs. One by one, they stepped forward, silent, deliberate. Their eyes held no hatred, just the cold certainty of tradition. They stripped him naked, took his rifle, his clothes, his powder horn, smeared his skin with ash, laughed among themselves, not cruelly but with something colder than cruelty. They were preparing him. Colter understood. He was prey now. A warrior pointed toward the horizon, where the plains stretched endlessly into the early morning haze. Then, with an almost casual nod, he said one word. "Run." Colter did, and in doing so, carved his name into the very bones of the American frontier. Long before that run, before the chase and the agony, John Colter had already become a man shaped by wilderness. Born around 1774 in the backcountry of Virginia, Colter grew up with soil under his nails and rivers in his blood. As a young man, he answered the call that pulled many restless souls westward, toward the edge of the known world. In 1804, at age 30, Colter joined the Lewis and Clark expedition. Officially, he was just another private. Unofficially, he became their most trusted scout, a hunter who could vanish into the forest for days and reappear with game, maps, and stories that bordered on myth. He walked thousands of miles, crossed the Rockies, slept under stars and storm, and when the expedition ended in 1806, while most men rushed back east to tell tales and collect pay, Colter turned his back on civilization. He wasn't done with the wilderness, and the wilderness wasn't done with him. In the years that followed, Colter became a mountain man in the truest sense. He signed on with fur traders, joined Manuel Lisa's expeditions, and guided Andrew Henry's parties into the farthest reaches of the Missouri and Yellowstone. He moved through lands unmapped and fiercely protected. Among those lands were the territories of the Blackfeet Nation. The Blackfeet were known for their speed on horseback, their military discipline, and their proud refusal to bow to white encroachment. They had seen what trade with fur companies brought: alcohol, disease, and betrayal. They wanted no part of it. And when the trappers came too close, they fought. Hard. Colter knew that. And yet, in the autumn of 1808, he and another trapper, John Potts, pushed upriver into Blackfeet territory in search of untouched streams thick with beaver. It was a decision that would end one life and test the limits of another. They were drifting in a canoe along the Jefferson River when they saw the movement on the banks. Dozens of Blackfeet warriors emerged from the trees. Some were mounted, others on foot. All were armed. Colter immediately lowered his weapon. He knew resistance was suicide. Potts did not. Instead, he raised his rifle and fired into the crowd. One warrior fell. The rest responded in kind. A volley of musket balls tore through the air. Potts was hit before he could reload, his blood splattering across the canoe. He screamed, slumped, and tumbled into the water. The Blackfeet dragged his body ashore and hacked it to pieces. His limbs were tossed into the river, his torso left to rot. Colter watched, frozen. Then they turned to him. He didn't fight, didn't plead, just stood, stone-faced, as they pulled him from the canoe. They ripped his clothes away, down to bare skin, rubbed mud and ash across his chest, not to humiliate, but to prepare him for what he didn't yet know. Then came the circle. He was placed in the center. The warriors stepped back. Murmurs rippled through the group. Some laughed, others nodded solemnly. Then the leader, tall and broad, stepped forward and raised one arm. With a low voice, he gave the command. Colter was to run. Not for freedom, not for mercy, for sport. They would hunt him. He took off like a thunderclap, His legs pumped furiously, his lungs already burning from fear. Behind him came the war cries, the rising sound of whooping voices and pounding feet. The earth was dry, studded with stones and thorns. Every step sent fresh fire into his soles. His skin, sun-baked and unprotected, began to peel under the heat. Still, he ran. The Blackfeet pursued, some on foot, others on horseback. They didn't rush. They didn't need to. They knew the terrain. They were built for this. But Colter, despite the odds, had one advantage. He was desperate. For over 6 miles, he ran barefoot across open ground. He weaved through low sagebrush and leapt over dry creek beds. His legs trembled with exertion. Blood poured from gashes on his heels. His breath came in shallow gasps. At one point, he glanced over his shoulder and saw that only a handful remained in close pursuit. He focused on the nearest one, a rider gaining ground. Colter had nothing, no weapon, no plan, so he made one. He swerved into a thicket, doubled back slightly, and hid just off the path. The horse thundered past. Colter sprang from the brush, grabbed a fallen spear from earlier in the chase, and plunged it into the rider's chest. The man screamed, fell, and lay still. Colter didn't wait to see who came next. He took the man's blanket, wrapped it around his shoulders, and vanished once more into the wild. He didn't know where he was anymore. Every hill looked the same. Every creek a false promise. He ran until he could no longer stand, then crawled, through bramble and marsh, through ice-cold streams and sharp stone. For days he wandered, driven only by instinct. He ate bark and roots, slept in hollow logs, hid from shadows, unsure if they were friend, foe, or fever. His feet were little more than torn flesh by the time he reached the Missouri River. There, he fashioned a crude raft from driftwood and floated downstream, letting the current carry his ruined body. When he finally reached Fort Lisa, more than 200 miles from where the hunt began, the men inside barely recognized him. Gaunt, sunburned, wrapped in filth and rags. Colter collapsed at the gates and didn't wake for 2 full days. When he did, he said very little. Just that he had seen hell and outrun it. John Colter recovered. And against all logic, he returned once more to the frontier, not to tempt death again, but to finish his life on his own terms. Eventually, he settled in Missouri. Married, built a cabin, tried perhaps to forget. But legends don't rest. Word of Colter's run spread quickly. Trappers told it in hushed tones around fires. Writers exaggerated the details, but the core remained. A man, alone and unarmed, outran a war party and survived. Colter never sought fame, but it found him, even in death. He passed in 1813, likely of jaundice, though some say exhaustion finally claimed him. He was just shy of 40. Today, Colter's path is part of Yellowstone lore. Trails crisscross where he once ran for his life. His name adorns rivers, parks, and plaques. But the truth of Colter isn't in the monuments. It's in the dust he kicked up, the blood he left behind, the silence he carried afterward. He wasn't a hero in the classical sense. He was something rarer, a man who survived the impossible, and who never stopped running. Thank you for listening to Deserted Trails. Subscribe for more forgotten stories from the old frontier.